Thank you, Chris. And I certainly am regretting that I missed the last meeting, especially it was in person. And then I got to hear all sorts of stories about the fact that it was Halloween and people were dressed up. And, I would have embarrassed myself because I wasn't dressed in a costume. So I don't know what you would have thought I was dressed as. I guess that would have been an interesting thing to contemplate. But glad to see you all. And I hope that you all had an opportunity to get some rest last week. I hope that you were able to have a break that was helpful to you, because I know that once that break is over for those, on a regular academic schedule and calendar, it just goes a little crazy until the end. So, I know that there's a lot going on. I want to keep my conversation with you brief, but I thought what I would do is tell you a little bit about kind of some settled upon legislative priorities. I want to explain how these legislative priorities are actually developed. These are not really, what I'm going to describe to you, are not really UNM specific legislative priorities. We can talk about that at another time. What I wanted to share with you is what the various higher education institutions in New Mexico decided together would be major legislative priorities shared by all of the higher ed institutions. When I first came to New Mexico, one of the big issues we were always facing was a belief that the higher education institutions were actually not working together, that we were in conflict, that we were up at the legislative session trying to get funding and take it away from other institutions. So one of the things that has changed over the last 3, 4, 5 years is a real push to try to demonstrate to the legislature and the executive that higher education does have priorities that are in common. And so the University of New Mexico is part of one of the organizations that represents higher ed in New Mexico, and that's the Council of University Presidents. We are a group of 7 who represent the 7 4-year institutions. And then there are 2 other associations in New Mexico related to the group of independent colleges and the community colleges. And so 3 different organizations, the independent community colleges and the Association of Community Colleges, and then CUP. And so what started several months ago is the Council of Presidents would talk about some general things that we all agreed would be priorities for us. And then the executive director for CUP would get together with the other 2 association leaders, and they would basically create a higher education set of unified priorities for this next legislative session. So I just wanted to give you that background because, what UNM does, we do go along with this, but we also have other legislative priorities too. But I think it's helpful for you to know what it is higher education is going to the legislature and asking for. And so, as is often the case, we are asking as higher education institutions for a large increase to what is called the Instruction in General Education or General Funding Budget, what we call ING. And the request is for specifically for 83.1 million across the institutions. ING is the most valuable funding that we get because it is generally the most flexible funding that we have. It is what allows us to fund general operations and to invest in various areas of importance to us. Some of the basis for asking for this funding is related to the inflationary rate. Higher education institutions are influenced by that just as much as a regular household. So I think you all have experience with what that has looked like, and certainly utility prices and other prices have gone up. And we also have seen some increased costs related to health insurance. We have talked about prioritizing student support initiatives. So about 14.4 million of the request is related to tutoring and academic advising, some student basic needs and behavioral and mental health for students. Another 11 million of the ask includes funding to help support campus safety services on our campuses. And then, we often, as higher ed institutions, are given unfunded mandates related to benefits and other things at the legislative level. And so part of what we're asking for is to go back and fully fund what have been some unfunded mandates related to employee benefits and increased employer costs for various kinds of programs. So that's the ING request. It's a biggie, but always what you'll find from the higher education institutions is that we are all concerned as leaders in higher education about recruitment and retention of our faculty and our staff. But, a lot of the focus is, compensation in general. I will tell you that, trying to figure out what the ask could be each year is a bit of a challenge. My inclination, and that of several leaders, is to always go really big, just a huge percentage. And you might remember, I think last year we were talking about 10%. This year, the mood of the Legislative Finance Committee, from people that we're talking to at the executive level, is, well, we should only be coming forward with 2 or 3%. Well, that's not where we landed. We instead are pushing for a compensation increase of 6% for all employees. You might remember, if you've been on the Senate before and heard these conversations, you know that when the state talks about a compensation increase, they don't fully fund it for higher ed institutions, especially not a university like UNM, where we have a lot of things that are not really ING funded. And so often they cover maybe 80% of the compensation increase, and that's not across the board. If you look over at health sciences, it covers really a tiny portion of compensation for people in health sciences. So we also have asked for some flexibility for institutions in how we actually apply the 6%. And, we don't know where that conversation is going to go, but we usually, as higher ed institutions, want flexibility. So we always ask for it. And then sometimes we get it and sometimes we don't. So we'll see where that heads for us. Also, I think in the last couple of years, I and James Holloway and I have both told you that we have been arguing for the real significant issue of recruitment and retention of faculty. And so we've asked for additional funding that we can use to actually try to deal with some of the inequities that exist. Excuse me, I might need to drink some water. So hopefully I won't lose my voice and I'll be able to finish this. We've asked for 3% additional that could be used to try to manage some of the discrepancies we have across the institution with regard to faculty salaries. The rest of what we've asked for is really non-recurring money. So the two things I just mentioned are recurring funds. They would continue in our budget in future years. Non-recurring funding, we're trying to focus on an endowment fund that's called the Higher Education Fund that allows us to use donor funds to match, that the state will match, so that we can create endowed professorships, graduate student fellowships, etc. We've asked for additional one-time money for campus safety. We've asked for additional funding of a technology enhancement fund that exists to help provide matching funds when people write grants and they're asking for a match. We can go to this fund to try to get that. And so we have quite a bit that we're asking to be done there. Huge initiative for our institution and for the others has to do with how do we keep our buildings renewed and replaced. You can look around our campus and know what an issue that is. So we're asking for 50 million statewide for facilities and trying to help with critical infrastructure. Also the need to replace equipment. I did a traveling office hour in biology this semester and heard about some technology instructional equipment that needed to be replaced. we really have a struggle with providing the funds for equipment renewal and replacement. So that's what this funding ask is for. Also some expanded cybersecurity initiatives. As you know, well, you may have seen in the paper that Loveless and its parent company has been hit, and Loveless Hospital locally is basically shut down. They're having to shut down in terms of emergency. They're having to direct patients to other places. Those cybersecurity incidents they're rampant and they are impactful, and we are constantly looking for ways to improve security. We continue to support the financial aid packages that are at the state level, lottery and opportunity scholarship. And so those are things that the higher education institutions are pushing as kind of general higher education priorities going forward. You know, and I just want to say we always welcome the work of faculty arguing for even higher compensation increases, higher support for various programs, higher support for, you know, the institution's bottom line in general. So, you know, we'll be talking more about this as we head into early next year and we have our 30-day legislative session. I wanted to also mention to this group, I don't think I mentioned it to you, and I'm not sure if it's been mentioned to you, but our Board of Regents has had some concern that some of our buildings that have been erected on campus, especially on the central campus, over the last few years, diverge from a Regents policy that focuses on what our buildings should look like, related to just the style of the external facilities, et cetera. And so we have had in place a committee that was formed by our board chair to really look at what our design standards are for facilities. And because we are in the midst of planning for our CCAP facility, for our arts and technology group facility, and then we also are actively in the design phase for a new foundation building that would be located on the corner of Yale and Lomas. So there are active projects going on as we're having regular meetings about those facilities. And in the course of the next few months, I expect our regents to really have, you know, some deep dive conversations about design on Central Campus in particular, but they're also thinking that, you know, what they'll do will potentially influence future facilities on other parts of campus in Albuquerque as well. So I wanted you to be aware that that is taking place. I also wanted you to know that the board is actively looking at whether to change their committee structure. So, you know, some of you may have had the opportunity to participate in some of the committee meetings, like the STAR, the Student Success and Teaching and Research Committee, basically, the HSC Committee, the Finance and Facilities Committee. And I think we're really looking at whether we are constructed in the most effective way for governance of the institution from the Regents level. And so I'm not really sure where any of this is going to land. It's possible that nothing will change, but the Regents will be actively looking at these things over the next couple of months. I think the first discussion, it was first discussed really during a Regents retreat this past summer, but I think there's starting to be some active conversations that will be taking place in the near future about how the Regents are actually organized around oversight of the work that we do at the university. So, you know, hanging in the greens, I don't know how many of you participate, but it is probably one of the biggest traditions on campus. And it will be this Friday night. I look at the weather report, maybe a little nervous because it looks a little cold with possibility of a little drizzle. But I'd hope that regardless of weather, that you'll take advantage of what is a wonderful tradition to, you know, celebrate this time of year. And you know, the wreath gets delivered to University House, and then there's wonderful hot chocolate and pozole at Hodgen Hall. So I think it all starts in the bookstore around 5:45 on Friday. I will be hosting my last traveling office hour on Tuesday, December 5th at 10:30. It's at PAIS, at the Physics and Astronomy and Interdisciplinary Studies facility. So that's where I'll be next Tuesday at 10:30, I believe it is. So with that, I will either take questions, or Chris, I don't know if what you'd rather do is have the provost do his talk, and I can stay for that, and we can both answer questions, however you want to handle it.
Let me go ahead and senators, do you have any, or participants, audience, do you have any questions for President Stokes? And I decided, President Stokes, that you're always dressed as a Lobo.
Thank you for that. I saw that in the chat. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Okay. I'll give people a chance to hear from the provost, and maybe we'll come back to you with questions.
I'll stay.
Provost Holloway.
Well, thanks, Chris, and let me make it very clear that you completely won the costume contest. So there was no question. So thanks everyone, as usual. I'm gonna try and keep it short today. I took a lot of time last time, and so I feel like I owe some time back to you. But just a few quick updates. We do have 3 dean searches going on, and so the Anderson School of Management dean search, the finalist visited campus right before Thanksgiving, and so we're gathering feedback now from everybody that they connected with, and doing some referencing, and so we should know where that's headed in the next couple of weeks. We're also just about to launch a search for the Dean of Graduate Studies. We have a committee assembled for that. It'll be chaired by Leo Lowe, Dean of the College of University Libraries and Learning Sciences. And so some of you suggested folks in that committee. Thank you for that. We're also launching a search for the Dean of University College, and that search will be chaired by Mark Peasney. So we'll probably roll that one out a week or so after the grad studies dean, but both of these will be firing up before break, and their real work will be happening in the spring. Both of those searches, grad studies and university college, will be internal searches. And so, you know, we're looking for someone who really understands the landscape here at UNM, because those 2 units are really so closely tied to our character and to our internal structures. And so for grad studies and university college, we look at internal candidates. And then just a quick UNM 2040 update. One of the things that's happening out of UNM 2040 is that we're asking all of the schools and colleges to undertake a strategic planning exercise within that framework. And at this point, all of the units have either completed, begun, or are about to begin that process. So we basically have a schedule for all of the schools and colleges to do that kind of strategic planning work. And the branch campuses as well, the chancellors are thinking about what that would look like at the branch campuses. And part of the idea behind this is typically in university level strategic planning processes, we create a set of goals at the university level, and we work on them at the university level. But the idea here was that in 2040, we really created a framework for planning, with the idea that we would get schools and colleges intimately engaged in that, and how the work of the various schools and colleges connects to the 5 goals of 2040. And so part of the plan has always been, we create that framework, that high-level framework, and then get schools and colleges to engage in that work, so that we really infuse the values and the goals throughout the institution. So that's ongoing now. I've got a couple of things I crossed out because President Stokes already talked about them. It's always good. The last thing I wanted, 2 more things I'll mention actually. So one is just on student retention. So our student retention from Last fall to this fall was about 73%. That's gone up. It's not our historic high. Our historic high would have been about 77%. And so we've got as a goal to continue to increase that fall to fall retention. And we talked about this last time some with when we had Pamela Cheek present as well. Some of the work that she's really leading is aimed at that, improving that fall to fall student retention, because that's where we lose most of our students. You know, as she discussed, anything you can do to help support that, I think this is super important. Things are looking pretty good going from fall into winter. As of this morning, if we look at this point in time compared to last year at this point in time, we have about 11% more students registered for classes for spring of 2024 than we did in spring of 2023. So that's very promising. It won't stay at 11%. A lot of this is getting students to register earlier. But earlier registration, we think, is also a good retention tactic. When students are registered, they're less likely to not return in the spring. So we won't see 11% enrollment growth for the spring, but we do expect to see enrollment growth for spring compared to last spring. So that's a good thing. And the final thing I'll mention is really a new area of work that we're starting to get serious about, and that's to start to look at how our students are encouraged to think about their step after college. So you come into, you know, you're in high school, you're a senior, you focus on getting into college. You get into college, cool, you take fun classes, you hang out with interesting faculty, but what's next? And we really want to get students thinking critically about, after, say, for an undergraduate, when they graduate, are they going to go on to graduate school, go to professional school, pursue a career? Pursue a career in what? How do they place their undergraduate studies in such a way that it helps them pursue those aspirations, whatever they may be? So this is a body of work that's really just starting for us. A piece of it will be doing some work to I really identify and help students understand where there are really exciting and promising job opportunities in New Mexico, because we'd also like this to be an opportunity to help students see that there are great opportunities for them in New Mexico. One activity that's happening in this vein is in about 2 weeks, December 12th and 13th, the Career Center will be running a program called What's Next? Career to College Transition Series. And so it's a 2-day workshop, an hour each day, to help students think about exactly these questions. What's next for them? That's how do they pursue their next aspiration or develop their next aspiration? But it is, I think, an important body of work. And so I'm flagging it for you today because it's, you know, we can get advisors involved in those conversations with students about what their next step might be. But all of you engage with thousands of students, and our colleagues engage with tens of thousands of students. So I think there will be some thinking for us to do as faculty. What are the things we can do to encourage our undergraduate students to think about their next step? And for many of our graduate students, for our PhD students, what is their next step? Some might be headed to academic jobs, but many won't. And so I think at all levels of education, we as faculty can be thinking more about how we encourage our students to think intentionally about their next steps. So just kind of flagging that as a new area of work that we're going to try and approach more systematically here. And I'll stop there and see if there are any questions for myself, and I'm sure that President Stokes would be happy to answer any additional questions as well.
Any questions for President Stokes or Provost Holloway? Looks like Michael Davis has one in the chat. And the president just answered it. Is the 83 million ING funding that is being asked a recurring annual funding goal? President Stokes says, yes, it is recurring. Other questions?
There's also a question in the chat about mentioning there's a dean search in nursing going on as well, and those finalists have been to campus. So I neglected to mention that search.
I could be wrong, but the lack of questions could be related to how far along we are in the semester.
It's the same thing that happens in a classroom.
Yeah, people hoping to wrap things up.
I do understand. Wow.
I will second President Stokes' call to come out for the hanging of the greens, because I'm one of the people, rain or shine, is going to be dishing out pozole at the end. So please come. Yeah, Finney's not on the meeting, so he doesn't have any questions. He's actually under the weather, so.
Let me
But he's
assure all of
available by
you that,
text.
let me assure all of you that when Finney doesn't have questions here, he just calls me.
Okay, well, thank you, President Stokes and Provost Holloway,
you.
for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do. Bye-bye.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the Faculty Senate President's Report. And I just wanted to share a few things with you. One, I just wanted to remind everyone that the capital outlay competition that the Governance Relations Committee is running, headed by the competition that's headed by Pamela Pyle and Barbara Dameron. The applications are due December 1st at 5 p.m. So if you wouldn't mind reminding your colleagues, I sent that out via the Faculty Senate listserv back in October. I will gladly send it out again if you want to forward that on to your colleagues. I don't know if he is on this Zoom call at this time, as he's not required to be, but I wanted to give a shout out to Michael Graves, and he's the chair of the RAC committee, Research Allocation Grants Committee. He and his colleagues on that committee, our colleagues on that committee, read 24 applications. So we're excited for those announcements as they continue to help fund faculty research. I also wanted to encourage you all to not only either nominate yourselves and or nominate your colleagues in your departments and programs for Faculty Senate. I know that the College of Arts and Sciences has already sent out their call for nominations. So those of you who are looking forward to helping me and your fellow senators in another year, the 24-25 academic year, work to address the priorities that Faculty Senate has identified and that we'll be discussing during the second hour. I hope you will nominate yourselves and or your colleagues to help us do that work. I wanted to mention, shout out to Nancy Middlebrook, who helped encouraged me to reach out to the provost. The provost has provided us an additional $3,000 for fall and spring commencement in order to provide faculty who come out to support students and participate, in order to provide those faculty snacks and drinks at the beginning of the ceremony. So I hope you'll join us for that. And as I believe President Stokes mentioned, January 16th begins the 30-day short session for 2024 legislators. And January 29th is UNM Day. So perhaps Faculty Senate, that could be also on our discussion of how might Faculty Senate participate in order to help legislators understand what it is that we do at UNM and why they should do more to support us in that work. And I will leave it there for now. Any questions for me at this moment? Euler? Euler? Sorry, couldn't resist. Okay, so next on our agenda item. Let's see here. This is an action item. We have Karen Patterson joining us, the chair of the policy committee, to talk to us about the C80 policy and the revisions that were made in terms of faculty assigned duties, commitments, and our availability to students. Karen, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Chris. I appreciate it. And I know you couldn't hear me, but I was laughing when you said Bueller because I have that feeling a lot these days in classes. So I understand the feeling.
I appreciate anyone who laughs at my terrible jokes. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, it's ubiquitous, I think, at this time of the semester. So I'm here to just tell you a little bit about C80 and why we're presenting it today. So this was brought up just, I think, mostly as sort of updating the policy to be consistent with sort of our contemporary learning environment that we have these days, and particularly since COVID. So C80 reference things like campus duty and office hours and things like that. And so what we've done here is basically updated the language, and essentially we have tried to include a little bit more guidance based on the feedback and the comments we got from both the 2 comment periods that we went through, as well as from ops. So thank you all for those of you that provided comments. I think we have a great committee this year, but the comments, I think, are always really helpful because, you know, we have a really diverse faculty and we need to hear from everybody. So a few changes were made, mostly that help us understand that office hours are not necessarily in person, that there are multiple modes of office hours or multiple ways of announcing office hours. And so we basically just sort of tried to update the language a bit. Hopefully you all have that. If not, I'm happy to share a version of it if you'd like to see it, but it should have been in your documents, I believe. So that's basically what we did. And what we're sending to you today.
You have any questions for Karen about the changes to the policy? Hearing none. Do we have a motion? To vote on this policy?
To approve.
Approve this policy. Thank you. I knew it would be Rick or Ezra to set me straight. To approve this policy?
Motion to approve policy, Justin.
Thank you, Justin. Second?
Seconded. Ezra, seconded.
Thank you, Ezra. Any discussion? Rick, if you wouldn't mind bringing up the poll. I promise you guys, after winter break, I'll get this down.
You're doing great, Kristen.
Thank you. I appreciate your support.
If it helps, I've been chair of the policy committee for 2 years, and Nancy still has to remind me what the order is and what the right wording is. So you're doing awesome.
Thank you. Finney was just so smooth at it, so he's a hard act to follow.
Finney took classes too, Chris.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
He didn't tell me that. Okay, let's
be
see.
a parliamentarian, he told me so.
How many seconds do we have? It looks like the votes are in. So we have
38 approve and 39 approve, 4 abstain.
Great. Awesome, great, thank you, awesome. So, Karen, thank you so much to you and the policy committee for bringing this to the faculty senate and for being such advocates for faculty support, because these are really important changes. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your work.
Thank you so much, and thank you all. And I'm glad we could get this done before we all have to have our syllabi out next semester. So hopefully this will be helpful to all of you as you start planning your semesters next time.
And Chris, I just want to mention your approval is allows us to go ahead and put it in the faculty handbook. So we'll be sending out a list of changes here in a little while. I wanted to wait on this one.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy.
Mhm.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, let's see here. Our next item on the agenda is information from our colleague, Karen Goodrow, Faculty Athletics Representative. Karen, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, so excited to be here.
Go ahead, Karen, sorry.
Oh no, you go ahead.
No, I just wanted to let faculty senators know, in case you were unsure, Karen has important position of serving, representing all of the faculty to faculty athletics. And I asked Karen to come and share with us what her responsibilities are in that and how we can also support Karen. So go ahead, Karen.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And do I have screen sharing capabilities? If I
Yes.
hope so. Okay,
Yes.
great. Before I at the risk of being too formal, I've put together a few PowerPoint slides to help make sure that I'm concise and as brief as possible in sharing a little bit with you today. My name is Karen Goodrow. I'm an associate professor in the College of Education and Human Sciences. I'm in the Department of Health, Exercise, and Sports Sciences, and I am the faculty athletics representative. And there are likely some of you here today who know what this role is and understand it, or there's varying levels of knowledge and awareness. And if what I'm sharing with you is repetitive, my apologies in advance. So I have had the privilege of serving in this role this is my third year. And it is truly a humbling opportunity, and I absolutely appreciate the privilege of serving UNM and President Stokes in this role. My expertise as a scholar and an academic are in pedagogy, education administration, and policy. In addition to that, I was a student athlete at an NCAA Division I university myself as an undergraduate student. So I understand the lived experience of student athletes, which granted it was a million years ago for me. I'm not going to tell you how many years ago. So I can understand the college experience from their perspective. With that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And please let me know, give me some sort of signal. Let me make sure you can see right on. Thank you, Nancy. Okay. All right. There's my information there. So the faculty athletics representative is a position that comes directly from the NCAA, and the NCAA Constitution indicates that each member institution is required to appoint a faculty athletics representative. This person is appointed by the president of the university. The NCAA Constitution goes on to state that the FAR is recognized as the representative of the institution and its faculty in relationship to the NCAA and the local campus, and that the NCAA conceptualizes this position as providing oversight and advising in the administration of institutional athletics. And so I like to think that, you know, I sort of sit between the NCAA and UNM with respect to academics and the administration of Lobo Athletics. So what are the responsibilities of the FAR as far as the NCAA Constitution is concerned? The first is that I am involved in the assurance of the academic integrity of athletics. And that means a variety of different things. It means eligibility, certification, involvement in those sorts of things with respect to Lobo Athletics. It also means that I assist in monitoring and supervising the academic performance of student athletes. And that's from both a global perspective and can sometimes be on the very, very detailed experience of individual student athletes in individual courses, sometimes regarding specific exams or elements of their academic performance. I'm also involved in oversight of the delivery of academic services to student athletes, and I work closely with the Lobo Athletics Student Success Team regarding this and ensuring that student athletes can thrive academically, and that also that they are holding up their end of the bargain and per point number 1 regarding academic integrity. The NCAA sees the FAR as the senior faculty advisor on athletics to President Stokes and Provost Holloway. I oversee and monitor and provide guidance around the personal welfare of student athletes to ensure that they are thriving and successful in the classroom and outside of the classroom in their athletic endeavors. And I'm also involved in institutional compliance with the NCAA regulations. So what does that mean specific to how I carry out these responsibilities at UNM? This role is very different and incredibly nuanced and context specific. So each FAR, whether they are at a Division III institution or a massive, large public institution, you know, lots of them are bigger than UNM. It's different what tasks and responsibilities the FAR takes on, and it's very, you know, context specific and institution specific. First and foremost, I work really closely with the Lobo Center for Student Athlete Success, and Chris Baca, Chris Hudson now is the Associate AD for Student Success, and the academic advisors in terms of staying in close touch with that academic integrity piece. I meet regularly with Lobo Athletics Administration. I have regular communication and meetings with President Stokes once or twice a semester to share with her work that I'm doing regarding the scope of this role. And for the purposes of my conversation with you today, these last two I think are most pertinent to you all. And that is, I support faculty in issues with student athlete academic performance, attendance, progress. My role is to assist, support, and serve faculty in handling and navigating some of the complexities and nuances of having student athletes in your classrooms and in your programs. And then I also provide the same for student athletes with respect to their academic performance and their personal welfare. What do you need to know? And what my goal, I hope, is that what you will take away from this is, number one, that you're aware that this position exists, that I am available to you, to your colleagues in your units, your programs, your departments, your colleges. Please go back and share my next slide has my contact information, my name, my contact information, and that this position exists. Over the course of the last semester, for example, I've worked with several faculty who have said, you know, I never knew that something like this existed. And for X number of years, I've had, you know, some of this consistent issues or challenges, and I never knew that there was anyone to go to. That's what I'm here for. And that faculty, please contact me at any time to provide you with guidance, assistance, support, to troubleshoot things. And if you're not sure if it's something in my purview, reach out to me anyway, and I'll put you in touch with the right person. And then I wanted to share with you these two passages from the NCAA Constitution, and that is: a member of the institution's faculty, the FAR, has to be a member of the faculty and shall not hold an administrative or coaching position in the athletics department. I don't work for Lobo Athletics. I report to President Stokes. So, and my position is I am the check and balance with respect to academic integrity in the athletics department for the benefit of upholding academic integrity and of the institution, of your work as scholars and educators, and for the student athletes. And the NCAA is clear to indicate that the creation of this position, quote, denotes the perceived need on the part of the NCAA to involve faculty views in the administration of intercollegiate athletic programs. And as a faculty member, I think that that's important for faculties, for you as senators, and for our faculty colleagues to know, is that the NCAA views faculty as faculty views are important in administrating and involvement in the role of intercollegiate athletic programs on our campus. And I think that's important in sort of providing the overarching context for this position and the intent and spirit in which it was created. And here is my contact information. And my last name is 10 letters and way too many vowels, and you pronounce it good, like the opposite of bad, and row, like row your boat. So Good Row. And no worries if you forget that and butcher it. No big deal. And there's my email address. And I want to open the floor for any questions, comments that you might have. Otherwise, I look forward to hearing from you and how I can help you in the future.
Dr. Goodrow, thank you so much. Questions for Karen?
I have a question, Dr. Goodrow.
Yes, Dr. Hanford.
I was wondering if you could provide just an example of some of the, like one or two things that, like examples that would help us contextualize when we might reach out to you, or what are the kind of issues that you help with?
Perfect. Yes. Faculty reach out to me if they have issues around student athletes who have travel schedules and they are missing exams. And they are requesting to make up an exam, and let's say that the instructor or the faculty member has concerns about the legitimacy of such request, or around abiding by syllabus protocols and those sorts of things. I sometimes a lot of what I do is with AD Chris Hudson and her team contacting me when a student athlete has made a good faith attempt to advocate for themselves and to be professional in handling their academic responsibilities with respect to coursework. And they are either not getting a response from the instructor or the faculty member, or a faculty member is maybe not understanding the request, or they are outright refusing to allow students to make up work. A lot of my recent work has been around policy D170, around what is considered an approved absence. There's some specific language about students, whether they're athletes or representing the institution in some formal capacity, and how those instances should be handled. And I get involved when students have done everything that they can and have done so in an appropriate way. I want to be very clear in that I am only brought in if Chris Hudson and her team and everyone believes that, this person has conducted themselves in a professional and mature and respectful manner, yet there still seems to be, a disconnect. I rarely am asked to get involved if the student athlete is, let's say, they have excessive absences, they're not performing well. Like in those instances, the student success team is quite, I have a lot of respect for the way in which they hold the student athletes accountable. I usually only have to get involved when I feel confident that, I'm advocating for a student athlete in a situation where it's warranted. I've also been involved in using my expertise in terms of pedagogy and curriculum and educational assessment with some lower division courses in the College of A&S. And they came to my desk as the FAR, but then it kind of snowballed into, I was able to sort of utilize some of my professional expertise in my research and my professional training in conversations with the Dean of Arts and Sciences and the administrative team in Arts and Sciences around some of the lower division math courses. And Pamela Cheek sought my guidance on some measures that she and her team were taking around an RPSP, around some extra funding for support. And I became aware of some of those issues because of my role as the faculty athletics representative, and some of the student athletes were in those courses. But I quickly realized after taking a look at what was going on in some of these courses that there was some growth and opportunity there in terms of enhancing some of the instruction and delivery and assessment practices in order to be aligned with, evidence-based research around, effective teaching and learning that would benefit all students, on our campus that take those courses, not merely the student athletes. And so, the opportunity to sort of, be involved in good faith with others who are trying to improve, the experience for all of our students. I feel really grateful for the opportunity to do that. It's really fulfilling work. Did I answer your question? Okay. Thank you.
Karen, there's a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Any word on bringing back the men's or women's soccer team?
So we do have a women's soccer program, and they're quite successful. The men's
is it funded by UNM?
Women's soccer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, our women's soccer program, the head coach is Heather Dyke, and she is absolutely fantastic. In fact, for those of you that don't know, she is nationally, in terms of the soccer world, nationally and internationally recognized as a highly effective coach. I think this year, our women's soccer program, they have one of the highest GPAs of any NCAA team in the country, not just in the Mountain West, which is really awesome. But I believe they went to the Mountain West conference tournament this year. The men's program was eliminated. I want to say I arrived in fall of 2018. It was that year in which that happened. And I can't really speak to how or why that occurred, but I have heard nothing about bringing it back. Unfortunately, Title IX is involved in any of those conversations when it comes to men's programs, women's programs, and funding and opportunity and those sorts of things. I see a couple of hands raised. Yay!
Roberta.
Sorry about no video. It says the host disabled it, so I don't know what glitch that is. But my question my question is it possible to get the student athletes to give us a copy of their travel schedule at the beginning of the semester so we know in advance when they're going to be gone?
Each of them is instructed to do so. I will let Lobo Athletics know that this is not happening in the way it's supposed to. Thank you, Roberta.
Yeah, it's sometimes I've gotten it, but some student athletes,
Yep.
almost always freshmen, come up to me and
Oh.
say, oh, yeah, so.
Yes, and there's there is a steep learning curve for them in terms of, coming out of high school and then coming here, and the things that they now have to do themselves as opposed to someone else doing for them. Sometimes it doesn't even occur to them that they need to do things. But yes, I'm going to share that in my next meeting with the student success team, in that the fact that you presented this question at all indicates to me that they're not all doing it. But I can promise you that they are instructed by their academic advisor. There's an academic advisor assigned to each team. And the student athletes are told that they are to do this. So I will let them know that some of the kids are not doing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Natalie.
So I was just curious if we have a routine question, like, I just want to make sure the student is really an athlete and that they're really supposed to be gone this week. Should we direct that to you, or would just kind of really basic questions better be directed to like Chris Hudson's team?
I don't have any problem receiving emails with questions of that nature.
Okay.
I may or may not know the individual that you're speaking of. I am beginning to, I've only been in this role for 2 years. Some of the FARs have, like in the Mountain West, have been doing it for like 12 years, 15 years. The longer I'm learning, the longer that you're in the role, the more effective that you are, because it's so depends on relationships and understanding. So I'm learning the student athletes and I'm getting to know the teams, but I can't promise I'm going to know that person's name, but I can promise you that within 30 minutes to an hour, I can check if that person is in fact. I am happy to receive those inquiries at any time. And if I can answer your question, I will. And if not, I will take whatever the question is, and I will then reply to you and copy who I think might be the appropriate party to present the question. So whatever is easiest for faculty, I feel like that's my role. I'm the liaison between us as faculty. I'm a faculty member, and Lobo Athletics. Send them to me.
All right. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, Dr. Goodrow, Karen, thank you so much for joining us. And I encourage all of you to reach out to Karen if you have any questions about your student athletes, or if your colleagues in your departments and programs have any questions, to please reach out. Thanks so much, Karen.
One final request. Faculty senators, at your next unit-wide meeting, will you please in your report provide my name, the faculty athletics representative, the name of the title of the role, and my email address, and just share that with your colleagues so that they may more easily reach out if they need help. Thanks.
And Karen, send it to me. Send me the info you want them to send out, and I'll send it via the faculty Senate letter, and it'll be easy to forward on.
I will also type it in the chat right now, and then I will
Perfect.
send it to you, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Next on our agenda is public comment. Rick, do we have any public comments?
No.
Okay, that brings us to our closed session. Rick, is there anything I need to do officially in order to move into that closed session? Do we need to vote?
Yes, you need a motion to move into closed session, and then a second, and then a vote. And I'm going to put a poll together real quick for it.
Thank you,
So
sir.
moved.
Second.
I think that was Ezra and then Natalie. Thank you all. Okay, so being in closed session, there were a few things that I wanted to share with you all but give most of our time over to conversation. And then at 4:45, Laura Gonzalez will join us to discuss honorary degree consideration. And the reason why they want to, we will do that in closed session is because it will entail a number of nominations, and of course, we don't want that information shared publicly in case any of those are turned down. We don't want to embarrass the candidates. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yes, we still have to take the vote. Thank you. Rick, can you go ahead and pull up the poll? Thank you, Nancy.
Yes, one moment.
So if any non-faculty senators can prepare to leave once the vote takes place. 100% approve.